The door was shut before anybody decided what truth was worth dying for. That's how it starts. No warning, no exit, just a room packed tight with people who came to help, and one woman who came to make sure nobody ever slept easy again. I'm watching it from the side, quiet like I always do. You don't announce yourself in a room like this. You let the air tell you who's hungry, who's scared, who's lying, and who already made a deal before they walked in. They called the place a mercy house. Funny name. Same way a man calls a cage a home when he don't want you asking where the key is. This ain't church. It ain't court either. It's a trap dressed up as righteousness. Wooden chairs jammed against walls. People standing in the doorway because there's nowhere else to put a body. Smoke hanging up high like it don't want to touch anybody down below. Cold sneaking in through a cracked window, making the room feel meaner than it already is. Front table. A young stenographer with a pencil and steady hands pretending she's not shaking. Across from her sits an old black woman with eyes that don't blink much. Skin weathered like it's seen too many seasons and learned not to ask for permission. Wrists thick and scarred, like somebody once tried to fasten her to the world and failed. On the table between them there's a little piece of cloth, faded, yellowed, small enough to be nothing unless you know what it cost to keep it. It's part of a child's sleeve, not a whole dress, just the piece you can hide, the piece you can carry even when they take everything else. Somebody stitched a tiny cross on it, crooked and clumsy, the kind of stitch a child does when they're trying hard not to cry. The woman never looks at the cloth. She looks at the people. Two white men in stiff collars, clean like they never had to crawl for air. A Quaker woman with righteous heat behind her eyes, trying to paint it as compassion. A black pastor who's seen enough to keep his mouth shut until it matters. And three journalists with pens sharp as switchblades, ready to carve a story out of a living person. One of the white men clears his throat like he's about to announce the weather. "We're gathering statements," he says, calm and practiced. "Conditions, mistreatment, especially involving children. Anything you can share will help." Help. That word always sounds clean when somebody else says it, like it don't leave blood under the nails. The old woman rolls it around in her mouth like she's testing a coin for fraud. "The cause," she repeats slow, like she's tasting how fake it is. The stenographer, sweet voice, leans in like she wants to make it safe. "So people know," she says, "so it don't happen again." The old woman's eyes drift to her, not unkind, not soft either, more like she's measuring how much innocence can fit in one body before the world breaks it. "How old are you?" the woman asks. 22, the girl says. The old woman gives a small twitch at the corner of her mouth, not a smile, more like a memory trying to become one and failing. "I was 10, she says, "when they took me to that house and told me God lived inside it." You can feel the room lean forward. Everybody wants the first drop of blood, but nobody wants to admit that's what they came for. The girl's pencil hovers. The journalists hold their breath. Even the pastor shifts in his seat. The old woman's voice stays low, like she's talking to one person and the rest of them just happen to be in the way. "You really want it?" she asks the stenographer. "You want to hear what mercy smelled like? You want to hear what God looked like when the door closed?" The stenographer swallows. Her hands don't stop, but the sweat spots start appearing on her paper anyway. "Yes, ma'am." That's when the old woman finally puts her palm on the cloth, just rests it there. Like she's grounding herself. Like if she doesn't touch something real, she might float away into that old nightmare and never come back. "I don't remember every child," she says. "Nobody does, but I remember enough." The Quaker woman leans forward, gentle in her tone, controlling with her posture. "If this is too much." The old woman snaps her gaze to her so fast the room goes still. "Too much," she says, and it ain't loud, but it's heavy. Too much was watching little ones disappear one by one while a clean-dressed woman told me it was love. She lifts one wrist into the lamplight. The scars catch the glow like they got their own story. "You don't cut in again," she says. "Not if you want to walk out of here the same way you walked in." The Quaker woman sits back, cheeks flushed, hands folding into her lap like she just got reminded she's not the one in charge. The stenographer clears her throat barely. "Where did it start?" She asks, soft, "With the first child you saw there?" The old woman's fingers tighten around the cloth like she's strangling a ghost. "No," she says. "We start with the night they came for me." And now you can feel it, this ain't a testimony. It's a confession with a knife on the table, because once she says it, it becomes real for everybody in that room, and real things have consequences. Her eyes lose the room, lose the smoke, lose the cold, lose the polite faces pretending they're different from the ones who did it. She's gone south in her mind, gone back. "Georgia," she says. "Winter. The kind of cold that makes wood complain." And then her voice changes, not louder, just sharper, like the memory is holding her by the throat. It was night. A cabin small enough for the air to feel used up, a fire dying low, a mother and a child pressed together on a pallet because warmth was a luxury. Then impact. A boot slams the door open like the house doesn't belong to the people inside it. Cold rushes in, along with whiskey stink and wet wool and the confidence of a man who never had to ask twice. A lantern swings. A shadow fills the room. A voice says, "Up." The mother moves first. That's what mothers do. She sits up and covers her child without thinking, like her body can become a shield. But the man doesn't even look at the mother like she's human. His eyes pass over her like she's furniture. "The girl," he says. And when he steps forward into the light, you see the face that owns the land, owns the house, owns the night, owns the people. Not because he earned anything, because the world let him. The mother begs, quiet at first, then desperate. She tries different angles, work, obedience, strength, promises. Like negotiating can fix a man who doesn't recognize negotiation. The man gives her one sentence like he's reading a receipt. "Bring her to the Mercy House at first light," he says. "My wife is ready." Ready, that word should have told everybody everything. The mother steps in front of him, wild now. She's not thinking about punishment. She's thinking about her child disappearing into a place she can't reach. The man backhands her so clean it sounds like wood splitting. The child hears that sound and learns something important. Pain can happen fast, and the people who cause it don't even blink. Then the man grabs the child by the wrist. His grip is hot, dry, certain, like he's picking up a tool. The child screams for her mother. The mother grabs back. For one heartbeat, the little girl is stretched between them, two forces pulling her in opposite directions. One side is love, the other side is ownership. And love don't come with papers. The man jerks harder. The mother won't let go, so he changes tactics. He doesn't fight the child. He fights the mother. He grabs the mother by her hair and drags her down like he's yanking a rug off a floor. The girl tries to crawl to her. A boot pins her hand to the dirt. Pain flashes white. Breath gets stolen right out her chest. The man says, "Don't touch what's mine." And the child don't even know which one of them he's talking about. After that, the mother goes quiet. Not because she accepts it, because she understands the math. A dead mother can't protect anybody. The man tells the time like he's scheduling a delivery. "Be ready." Then he leaves, just like that, like the wreckage behind him is normal. The mother gathers her child up and holds her the way shipwreck survivors hold onto broken wood. Tight. Like if she loosens her arms, the world will take everything. The girl begs, promises, bargains. All the things kids do when they think good behavior can stop evil. The mother doesn't waste time with false comfort. "Listen," she tells her, voice shaking but steady in the hands. "They gone try to rename what they do to you. They gone call it love. They gone call it saving. Don't you believe it?" The girl asks why her? The mother hesitates, then says the truth anyway because truth is the last weapon she has left. "You look like him," she whispers, "and men like that don't like their sins walking around where folks can see it." That's the reason, not punishment, not discipline, cleanup. Morning crawls in. The sky turns gray. The cold bites harder. The man walks the child down a frost-stiff path, boots crunching like he enjoys the sound of control. And up ahead sits the building, separate from the cabins, not as grand as the big house, not as poor as the quarters. White paint bright enough to blind. Windows staring blank like they don't care who's inside. A cross over the door clean and proud like it's there to silence questions. From far away it looks holy, Up close it smells wrong. The door opens before they reach it. A woman stands there, his wife straight-backed, composed, no gloves, no warmth in the eyes, just calm. The kind of calm that don't come from peace. It comes from certainty. She looks at the man. This one, she asks. He doesn't say the child's name. Doesn't even pretend. She's yours, he replies. And the wife steps forward and takes the little girl's bruised wrist in her pale hand, gentle like she's handling something delicate. That gentleness makes the child's stomach twist worse than the man's roughness ever did. What do they call you? The wife asks. The girl whispers her name. The wife repeats it like she's approving a label for a jar. Then she gestures toward the open doorway. Come inside, she says. We'll make you right. The child hesitates. Behind the wife in the dim hallway, something small shifts, just a flicker of movement like a kid's face pulling back into shadow. A warning, a secret. The wife's hand lands light on the child's shoulder, guiding her forward. And the moment the girl steps over that threshold, the door closes with a soft, final click. Like the house just swallowed her whole. The warmth hits first. Not comfort, control. The kind of heat that presses in from all sides, takes your breath, makes you forget what cold felt like 5 seconds ago. The door seals behind her with a sound too polite to be honest. Soft, final, that's how you know you're not meant to leave. The air smells clean on top, soap, starch, boiled water. But underneath it something bitter, something that's been sitting too long in a closed bottle. The woman mistress now, though nobody says it out loud, moves like the house belongs to her bones. Calm steps, no rush, no noise wasted. She doesn't drag the child, doesn't shove, she doesn't need to. The hallway is narrow. White walls scrubbed until they look tired. A small table with a Bible placed just right, like a warning more than a comfort. Another cross on the wall, smaller than the one outside. Closer, harder to avoid. The girl's eyes keep drifting to it. Inside, crosses feel different. Outside you can walk away. They pass closed doors, each one quiet, too quiet for a house meant for children. At the end of the hall, one door stands open. Inside, 6 children sit on the floor in a half circle. They don't fidget, they don't whisper, they don't even look curious. They look trained. All of them light-skinned. All of them watching the doorway like it's the sun and they're scared to blink. The girl stops moving. This ain't what she expected. She don't even know what she expected, but it wasn't this. Not kids who sit so still it feels like breathing might be against the rules. A fireplace crackles low. Real beds line the wall. Narrow, but real. A window shows the early sky, pale and pink like it doesn't know what's happening in here. These are the others, the mistress says, voice smooth. You'll be staying with them. One of the girls stands, about 9, hair neat. Smile practiced but warm enough to fool somebody who wants to be fooled. Hi, she says, I'm Grace. She takes the new girl's hand. Gentle grip, warm palm. It's better here, Grace whispers. You'll see. That sentence settles wrong in the chest, like it's been said too many times. The mistress points to an empty bed by the window. That's yours, she says. You rise when they rise. You eat what you're given. You pray, you obey. She pauses just long enough for the words to sink teeth. Do you understand? The girl nods. She's learned already. Nodding is safer than question. The mistress leaves. Her footsteps fade. The room exhales like it was holding its breath. That's when the cracks show. A boy coughs, tries to hide it, fails. A little girl clutches a scrap of cloth like it's the only thing tethering her to this world. One boy, older, watches with hard eyes, not scared, calculating. Grace doesn't let go of the girl's hand. Come on, she says. I'll show you where to wash. The washroom is barely a room. Cold water, thin soap. One cloth that's seen too many faces. The cold bites hard, it wakes you up fast, makes you alert in a place that don't want you alert. How long you been here? The new girl asks. Grace thinks, tilts her head. Couple years, she says, maybe more. Years, the word lands heavy. Why you here? The girl asks. Grace doesn't answer right away. When she does, it's flat. Mistress says we're mistakes, she says. Born wrong, world don't want us. She shrugs like she's repeating something she's heard so often it stopped hurting. They eat at a long table later. Thin porridge, Bread, water, no talking, heads down, hands folded. The mistress prays, long, slow, careful words about gratitude and mercy and shaping children into something worthy. The girl eats because hunger doesn't care about fear. After the bowls are cleared, the mistress leans close, close enough to smell her breath. "Do you know what happens to children who disobey?" she asks. The girl shakes her head. The mistress smiles. "Let us pray you never find out." That night they kneel again, psalms this time. The mistress's shadow stretches across the wall, tall and thin, cutting across the cross behind her like a blade. Then she says the word that changes everything: medicine. A cabinet opens. Brown bottles line up like soldiers. Thick liquid pours into a spoon. One by one the children step forward. No arguing, no hesitation. The coughing boy swallows and winces. Grace steps up, doesn't blink. The baby cries until the spoon is forced past her lips. Then it's the new girl's turn. Up close the liquid looks wrong, too dark, too heavy, smells sharp, bitter, metallic. "It helps you rest," the mistress says gently. "Helps you be good." Grace nods encouragement. The girl opens her mouth. The taste is awful. Her body fights it. The mistress's hand closes under her jaw, firm, practiced. "Swallow." She does. The room blurs later. Beds creak softly. Breathing slows. The girl stares at the ceiling, thoughts thick, slipping. She tries to picture her mother's face. It won't stay still. From somewhere in the dark, a child cries, soft, muffled, like they've learned not to make too much noise. Morning comes too fast. Days blur. Wake, wash, pray, eat. Work, pray, eat. Medicine, sleep. Silence becomes a rule. Order becomes survival. She watches everything. The cough getting worse. The little boy flinching when footsteps come close. The hard-eyed boy losing something behind his stare. Grace smiling even when her eyes go empty. 2 weeks in, the coughing boy doesn't wake up. The silence after his breathing stops is louder than any scream. The mistress checks him, nods once. "He's with the Lord." They carry his body out back. That's when the girl sees the garden. Not vegetables, not flowers, crosses, too many of them, no names, just numbers you're not supposed to count. They add another. "Mercy," the mistress says. That night the girl can't sleep. She presses her forehead to the window and stares at the garden. Behind her, a whisper cuts the dark. "You see it now, don't you?" The hard-eyed boy sits up, eyes sharp. "This place ain't mercy," he says. "It's a grave that eats slow." And just like that, the game changes. Because once you see the board, you can't unsee it. And somebody in this house is already deciding who's next. Once you know the house is counting bodies, every sound starts meaning something. Footsteps ain't just footsteps anymore. They're decisions. Doors ain't doors. They're deadlines. The girl learns to listen without looking, to feel the shift in the air when the mistress walks past, to read the silence the way other kids read books. They bury the coughing boy quick. No service worth remembering. Just dirt, prayer, and another cross pressed into red clay like punctuation. The house gets quieter after that. Not peaceful, careful. Grace still hums while she works, but it's softer now. Like she's scared the walls might hear her hope and take it away. A new girl arrives not long after. Same age, same eyes, same fear dressed up as obedience. The cycle don't pause, it just replaces. The medicine keeps coming every night. Same spoon, same calm voice, same lie. It helps. The girl watches what it really does. It dulls edges, slows thoughts, makes resistance feel like too much work, makes kids easier to move, easier to lose. When the new girl gets sick, the pattern repeats. Fever, shaking, no doctor, just prayer and heavier doses. The girl begs this time, breaks a rule. "Please," she says, she needs help. The mistress grips her chin, nails digging just enough to teach a lesson. "Do you think you know better than God?" That question ain't about God, it's about power. 2 days later, there's another cross. The girl stops crying after that. Crying wastes energy. She starts remembering instead. Names, faces, small details nobody else cares to keep. At night, when the medicine fogs the others, she scratches notes on scraps she steals, hides them under loose boards. Quiet rebellion. Dangerous kind. Then one day she sees her mother again, in the main house kitchen. Older, smaller, eyes empty. They don't embrace, they can't. Survival has rules. Get what you came for, her mother says without turning around. That hurts worse than the night she was taken. That night Grace's cough starts, soft at first, hidden, then louder. The girl knows what that sound means. She begs again, louder this time, desperate. The mistress doesn't shout, she never does. She sends the girl to the cellar instead. Dark, cold. Time stretched thin. 2 days later they pull her out. Grace is dying. The girl holds her hand, promises to remember, promises to tell. Grace smiles like she already knows the ending. Then her hand goes still. Another cross. That night the girl doesn't sleep. She decides something quiet and dangerous. She won't die like them, not silent, not forgotten. And when the mistress finds the hidden list a week later, names burned to ash in front of her, the threat comes out clean and precise. No one will believe you, the mistress says. And if you try, your mother dies first. That's the leverage, that's the trap. But traps only work if the person inside them stops thinking. And the girl is thinking now. Hard. Because somewhere outside this house, somebody still doesn't know. And if she can force the truth into the light, this whole clean white lie burns down with it. The question ain't if the house will claim another child. It's whether the next move belongs to her. Or to the woman who's been killing in God's name. Fear keeps you alive. Anger teaches you timing. The girl learns the difference after the cellar. Pain fades. Hunger passes, but anger settles in quiet right behind the eyes where nobody can see it. That's where you keep it if you plan to survive. She starts moving different, slower, quieter, obedient enough to stop suspicion, alert enough to notice everything. The mistress watches her longer now, studies her like a problem that won't solve itself. Another boy comes in, small, scared, eyes too big for his face. Same speech. Same spoon. Same fog settling behind his eyes by the third night. Then one morning the screaming breaks the rules. Not the muffled kind, not the swallowed kind. Real screaming. The boy is on the floor, body jerking like something inside him is trying to escape, foam at his mouth. Eyes rolled back. The mistress's calm finally cracks, not with panic but irritation. Too much, someone mutters. They drag him away, down to the cellar. Out of sight fixes everything in this house. The girl hears him later, barely, a whimper scraping up through the floorboards. She presses her palm to the door when no one's looking. I see you, she whispers. I remember. 2 days later there's another cross. That night she goes outside for the first time. The back door isn't locked, it never needed to be. The house counted on the medicine, on the fear. Moonlight turns the garden pale and cruel, crosses lined up like teeth. She kneels in the dirt, presses her hands into the ground. I don't know who you listening, she says, but don't let them disappear. The earth stays quiet. But something in her doesn't. James, the hard-eyed boy, starts whispering plans with her after that. Not escape plans. Those get you killed fast. Exposure plans make her slip, make her show herself. Then the mistress calls her into the study. That's when the real move comes. The bottle on the desk isn't the usual one. Smaller, darker, heavier. 1 dose, the mistress says, voice soft as a hymn. And all that anger goes away. The girl opens her mouth, then knocks the spoon away and runs. She doesn't get far. Strong hands grab her, drag her back. The mistress fills the spoon again, shaking now, furious in a quiet, dangerous way. And then a voice from the doorway, what's going on? The room freezes. The man who started all of this stands there. The owner, the father, the secret. And beside him, the girl's mother. The truth spills fast once fear breaks. Poison, graves, children. The mistress doesn't deny it. She reframes it. I cleaned up your mistakes, she tells him. I made them disappear. That's when power shifts. Not to justice, not to mercy, to damage control. The mercy house closes. The mistress is sent away where rich women go to be quietly forgot. No trials, no headlines. Years later, the girl sits in another room. Another table, another locked door, and she tells it all, not for sympathy, for memory. Because the real danger was never that house. It was how easy it was for everyone to look away. And once the story is told, there's no locking the door again. The room doesn't move when she finishes. That's the real tell. People cry, sure, pens shake. One of the journalists wipes his face like he's ashamed to be seen like this. The Quaker woman stares at the floor, lips pressed tight, already rewriting her faith so it can live with what it just heard, but nobody speaks. Because once a story like that lands, you don't rush to answer it. You sit with it, you feel how heavy it is. You ask yourself who else knew and stayed quiet. The old woman stands, slow, careful. Like her body learned a long time ago not to make sudden moves in rooms where power pretends to be polite. She presses the scrap of cloth to her chest. That little sleeve weighs more than all the paper in the stenographer's hands. "I kept my promise," she says, not loud, not asking for approval. "That's all." She turns toward the door. That's when I notice it, the shift. One of the white men, the one who spoke first, hasn't written a word since she mentioned the graves. His face is tight, controlled, not shocked, calculating. He's already thinking past the story, past the children, past the dead, thinking about names, donations, boards, churches, who funded what, who signed papers, who prayed loud and looked away. That's when I know this ain't over, because places like that don't exist alone. They need silence, money, respectable faces. And every one of those things belongs to somebody still breathing. The old woman reaches the door, pauses, looks back once. "You wanted truth," she says. "Now you got it." She leaves. The door closes, and the room exhales like it just survived something, without realizing the real danger just stepped into the world. Because stories don't just expose monsters, they make enemies. And somewhere out there, someone is already deciding whether this truth gets buried the same way those children did, or whether the reckoning finally finds a voice loud enough to be heard. Outside, the air feels different, cleaner, sharper, like freedom and danger share the same breath. The old woman steps onto the street and doesn't look back. She never does. Looking back is how they pull you into conversations you don't survive. She's lived long enough to know something else too. Telling the truth don't end a war. It just announces one. Behind her in that room, phones will ring. Meetings will happen without minutes. Editors will argue over tone. Pastors will pray on whether silence is the wiser form of faith. And somebody, quiet, connected, protected, will ask the only question that ever really matters. How do we contain this? Because the Mercy House wasn't an accident. It was a solution, a clean one, a convenient one, and men don't like having their solutions dragged into daylight. The old woman knows this. That's why she walks steady, head up, pace even, like she's daring the world to try something now. She's already won the part that matters. The children aren't numbers anymore. They're names, faces, weight. And once names start moving through the world, they don't stop easy. Somebody will try to discredit her. Say she's confused. Say grief made her dramatic. Say time twisted her memory. That's the first move. It always is. But she planned for that too. Because memory isn't the only thing she carried out of that house. There were witnesses who learned how to stay quiet until it mattered. There were hands that buried crosses and never forgot where. There were people who saw just enough to know the lie didn't add up. And lies collapse different when too many people are standing on them. Somewhere, a door will open that was supposed to stay shut. Somewhere else, a name will surface that was never meant to be spoken out loud. And somebody powerful is going to realize, too late, that the child they tried to erase grew up watching the whole board. Not crying, not begging, waiting. Because real power don't rush, it remembers. And the moment the world starts listening, someone's about to learn what happens when buried truth decides it's done staying underground. Here's the part nobody likes to admit. Truth don't move on its own, it needs pressure. The old woman knows that too. Days pass, then weeks, and the story starts circulating, but not the way people think. Not loud, not front page bold, it moves sideways, whisper to whisper, paper to paper, church basements, back rooms, editorial meetings where doors close before names are spoken. Some outlets want it clean, some want it buried, some want it rewritten so nobody important bleeds, and then the visits start. Not threats, not yet. Just questions from men who smile too easily. Men who say things like, "We're just trying to understand," and memory can be tricky after so many years. They want her tired, doubting herself, softened. They don't realize she's been trained by worse. She answers politely, carefully, never more than she has to, never less than she promised. At night, though, she listens. Because when a lie is wounded, it thrashes. Someone follows her once. She notices by the reflection in a shop window, doesn't speed up, doesn't turn around, just files it away. James's face flashes in her mind, hard eyes, survivor's stare. He de-said it years ago, low and certain. They don't forgive people who remember. Then one afternoon a letter arrives. No return address. Heavy paper, careful handwriting. Inside is a single sentence. You should have let the past stay buried. That's when she smiles, not because she's fearless, because now she knows she was right. They're scared, and scared people make mistakes. Somewhere somebody has gone digging, looking for the old garden, looking for proof that dirt and time were supposed to erase. And dirt has a bad habit of giving things back. She folds the letter, places it beside the little cloth sleeve, and looks out the window. The game is no longer about whether people believe her. It's about who moves first now that the truth has teeth. Because once power feels cornered, it doesn't retreat, it strikes. And whatever's coming next won't be quiet. The strike doesn't come loud, it comes polite. A committee forms. That's how they do it when they want blood without fingerprints. A review, a historical inquiry. A handful of men with soft hands and expensive watches talking about context like it's a shield. They invite her to speak again. Different room, bigger table, more smiles, same trap. She sees it before she sits down, the way the chairs are spaced, the way the stenographer this time won't meet her eyes, the way the questions are framed to sound curious but lead you somewhere narrow. They want her inconsistent, emotional, angry. They want a crack. She gives them calm. Dates, names, places, the garden, the number of crosses before and after she arrived, the smell of the medicine, the cellar door, the way children stopped coughing when they died. No drama, no pleading, just facts laid down like bricks. That makes them nervous. One man clears his throat. Mentions time, memory, trauma. She cuts him off without raising her voice. You don't forget where children are buried, she says. Not if you helped count. Silence. That's when she notices something new. A man in the back, didn't introduce himself, didn't ask a question, been watching the whole time like he's not here to talk. He leaves before the meeting ends. That night the phone rings once. Nobody speaks, just breathing. She hangs up slow, because now she knows this ain't about the Mercy House anymore. It's about everyone who benefited from it staying buried. And somebody just decided she's a liability. She locks her door, sits in the dark. The cloth sleeve in her hands. And for the first time in years she feels that old thing again. Not fear, focus. Because when they stop asking questions and start sending messages, it means the next move won't be paperwork, it'll be personal. The first rule when pressure turns personal is simple. You don't panic, you prepare. She starts changing her patterns. Different streets, different times. Never the same window lit 2 nights in a row. Harlem taught her that long before any Mercy House did. Survival is a rhythm, and anybody watching expects you to keep dancing the same way. She doesn't. A man knocks one evening just after dusk. Well-dressed. Church shoes. Respectable face. The kind you'd trust with a donation plate. I'm here on behalf of some concerned parties, he says, voice smooth, apologetic. They're worried this story may spiral. She doesn't invite him in. Spiral where? She asks. He smiles, small, controlled, toward people who don't deserve to be hurt. That's the tell. Hurt is only a concern when power's involved. She meets his eyes, doesn't blink. Children didn't deserve it either, she says. The smile disappears, just for a second. That house is closed, he says. The woman's dead. Some things don't need reopening. She leans closer, just enough to let him feel it. You don't knock on my door over things that don't matter. He leaves without another word. That night her phone rings again. Same breathing. Longer this time. She doesn't hang up. I'm still here, she says into the dark. The line goes dead. The next morning she hears it from someone else. A journalist she trusts, quiet voice, careful. They're moving, he says. Files missing. Old donations being scrubbed. Someone's leaning hard. She thanks him, hangs up, sits still. Because this is the moment every real story reaches, where truth costs more than silence ever did. She takes out the cloth sleeve, runs her thumb over the crooked stitch. Almost, she whispers. Somewhere across the city, somebody is deciding whether intimidation is enough, or whether the past needs one more body to stay buried. And she knows deep down the next knock on her door won't come with a smile. The knock comes at dawn. That's how you know it's real. Not loud, not urgent, just firm enough to say somebody expects obedience. She doesn't rush. Rushing gives power away. She takes her time, slides the chain, looks through the crack. Two men, plain coats, plain faces. No badges shown. That's intentional. Miss Cooper, one of them says, like he's already inside the house. We need to talk. She studies them the way you study a bad hand in cards, not for what's showing, but for what's missing. No, she says, you don't. They exchange a look. The older one sighs like she's being unreasonable. This can go easy, he says, or it can get complicated. She opens the door just enough to let her voice travel. You're already late, she says. If you were law, you'd have said so. If you were friends, you'd have knocked different. So tell me which lie you want to try next. That rattles them, not much, just enough. The younger one steps forward, too fast, rookie mistake. You've been making accusations, he says, dangerous ones. She nods, truth does that. A pause stretches. Somewhere down the block, a truck backfires. Everybody flinches except her. The older man lowers his voice. There are people who don't want this story finished. She meets his eyes. Then they should have stopped it at the beginning. Another pause, longer this time. We can protect you, he says finally. That one almost makes her laugh. From who? She asks. The same people who sent you. Silence answers. They leave without another word. No threats, no promises, that's worse. She closes the door and locks it, then unlocks it again. Because locks don't stop what's coming. They just make you feel polite about it. She sits at the table and starts writing. Not memories, instructions, names, addresses, where copies are hidden. Who to call if she doesn't show up somewhere she's supposed to be. She learned that part from watching men like Thornhill her whole life. Power always thinks it's alone. It never expects a contingency. By nightfall, the city hums like it's holding a secret. Somewhere a meeting is ending. Somewhere else a decision gets made without her name spoken out loud. She folds the paper, places it with the sleeve. If they come for her now, they won't just be erasing a woman. They'll be lighting a fuse. And whoever struck that match better understand one thing. The story doesn't die with the storyteller. The fuse burns slow. That's the dangerous kind. Morning comes quiet. Too quiet for a city that never really sleeps. She notices it the way old hustlers notice a missing sound on the block. No arguing downstairs. No radios. Even the street feels like it's waiting for instructions. She leaves anyway. You don't hide when pressure's on. You move. You make yourself seen on your terms. She walks 3 blocks, turns where she shouldn't, doubles back once just to confirm it. Yeah, she's got company. Same man from the committee, the quiet one. Walking like he's just another shadow minding his business. She stops, dead, turns around. You gonna follow me all day, she says, or you got something to say? He freezes. Didn't expect that. People like him survive on the idea that nobody calls them out. Just making sure you're safe, he says. She steps closer, close enough to make lying uncomfortable. You ain't here for my safety, she says. You here to measure how loud I am before you decide how hard to press. His jaw tightens, that's confirmation. You don't understand what you're poking, he says quietly. There are institutions tied to this. Money older than you, names people protect. She nods like she's agreeing. I know, she says, that's why it scares you. He studies her, really studies her now, like he's finally seeing the child they failed to erase grew into something that won't fold. You keep going, he says. You won't like how this ends. She leans in just enough for only him to hear. Neither will you, she says. Difference is, I already buried the people I loved. You still think yours are untouchable. That does it. He steps back, turns, walks away fast, too fast. She watches him disappear into the street and exhales slow, because now it's official. They've crossed from warning to threat, which means the next move won't be subtle. It'll be final. And somewhere in the city, somebody is deciding whether silencing one woman is worth the noise that comes after. Night falls heavier than usual. Not darker, heavier. Like the city itself knows something ugly is being decided in rooms without windows. She doesn't go home. That was the plan they'd expect. Instead, she walks into a church basement 2 neighborhoods over. The kind with peeling paint and folding chairs that have heard more truth than confession ever did. A place where doors lock from the inside and people mind their business because minding it kept them alive. She meets 3 people there. That's all it takes. A journalist who never printed a word without a backup copy, a pastor who buried too many children to keep praying quiet, and a woman who once cleaned offices for men who thought secrets stayed in filing cabinets. They don't hug, don't waste breath on courage. She hands them envelopes. "If anything happens to me," she says, "you open these." "What's in them?" the journalist asks. She shakes her head. "Everything they're trying to erase." Outside, a car idles too long across the street. She notices it, doesn't react, because reacting tells them they're close. She leaves through the back, takes alleys, cuts through a building with 2 exits, comes out different than she went in. Still, the car follows, slow, careful, professional. That's when she understands something cold and clear. They're done pressuring, they're verifying. She reaches into her coat, fingers brushing the folded paper, the cloth sleeve, the names that refuse to stay buried. She crosses the street against the light. The car hesitates. Good. Hesitation means orders aren't clear yet, and unclear orders are where mistakes live. She disappears into the crowd just as the car pulls forward again, missing her by seconds. From a distance, someone lifts a phone. Somebody else lowers a window. The city exhales, because the line has been crossed now. Not between truth and silence, between warning and consequence. And whatever happens next won't be decided in committee rooms or church basements. It'll be decided in the open, right where everybody can see it. Morning news breaks it before they can stop it. Not the whole story, not yet, just enough. A headline slips through, careful wording, historical allegations, records under review, community response pending. That's how the first crack sounds. By noon, phones won't stop ringing. By afternoon, names start getting nervous. By evening, somebody panics and makes the worst mistake possible. They move too fast. A fire breaks out behind an old property outside the city, supposed to be empty. Supposed to erase what's left. Old land. Old bones, old questions, except fire brings people, and people bring eyes, charred ground, half-burned crosses, soil disturbed in places nobody can explain away clean. A photographer gets there before the suits do. That's when the fuse reaches the powder. By nightfall, the story has teeth, real ones, numbers, locations, patterns nobody can misremember. The woman hears about it from a pay phone. Listens quiet, hangs up slower than usual. She doesn't smile because exposure doesn't mean safety, it means escalation. Now the people who wanted silence want control, and control don't negotiate when it's losing. She changes locations again. No addresses, no routines, just movement, like water. Somewhere a call gets made that shouldn't have been. Somebody says her name out loud to the wrong person, and that's when she feels it, not fear. That old, familiar pressure in the chest that means the next move isn't political. It's personal. Because when power realizes it can't bury the truth, it starts looking for a body to stand in front of it. And this time, they're not knocking. It happens fast after that. No warnings, no breathing on the phone, no polite men in clean coats, just motion. A car pulls too sharp at a corner it shouldn't know she's turning. Tires talk loud, too loud, amateur or desperate, either way dangerous. She doesn't run. Running tells them they're right. She cuts through a side entrance, pushes into a building where the lobby smells like old paper and burned coffee, keeps moving, never looks back, counts steps, times doors. Uses reflections instead of mirrors. That's how you survive when somebody wants you gone but can't make it look like murder yet. Outside, sirens flare, not for her. That's important. Wrong direction, wrong urgency, a distraction. She slips out the back, blends into a bus crowd, keeps her head down like every other tired soul just trying to get home. The car misses her by seconds. That's when she knows. They're not trying to scare her anymore. They're trying to corner her. She reaches the safe place just before dark, not an address, a person, somebody who understands leverage better than loyalty. He listens without interrupting. That's how you know he's dangerous in the right way. When she finishes, he nods once. They're late, he says. That's their problem. He makes one call, says very little, hangs up. By tomorrow, he tells her, this stops being about you. She studies his face, knows what that means. Pressure moves uphill now. Too many eyes, too many copies. Too many people with something to lose if she disappears. That's when the message comes in. No threats, no insults, just 4 words. Leave it alone. Now, she deletes it without replying. Because at this point, silence isn't safety, it's surrender. And she didn't survive the mercy house, the graves, the cellar, and the counting. Just to fold when the truth finally started hitting back. Somewhere tonight, someone is realizing they pushed too hard. And tomorrow, somebody's going to pay for it. Dawn doesn't bring relief, it brings clarity. By morning, the city knows just enough to be dangerous. Not enough to understand the full shape of the thing, but enough to smell rot under white paint. People talk quieter. Phones get answered faster. Names that used to open doors now hesitate outside them. That's how power tells you it's bleeding. She watches it from a borrowed window, coffee untouched, coat still on. You never get comfortable when the game's active. Comfort is how you miss the moment everything turns. The man who gave her shelter checks his watch. They're scrambling, he says. That means somebody's about to make a solo move. Always happens when groups panic. She nods. She's been waiting for that. Group decisions are slow. Solo decisions are reckless. A message comes through just after noon. Different channel, different tone. We can talk. No threats, no commands. That's not peace. That's negotiation. And negotiation only shows up when leverage has shifted. She doesn't answer right away. Lets it sit. Lets whoever sent it feel the silence stretch. Because silence, used right, is pressure. Outside, a car idles across the street. New one, different plates. Windows too dark for daytime. She clocks it without reacting. Inside, the phone buzzes again. You don't understand what you're risking. She finally types back. I understand exactly. The reply takes longer this time. That's good. That means whoever's on the other end is asking permission. She stands, pulls on her coat, tucks the cloth sleeve deep inside where it's always been, close to the heart. Close to the reason. Where you going? The man asks. She looks at the window, at the street, at the car that's pretending not to watch. To finish it, she says, because endings don't come to people like her. They're taken. And somewhere between this door and the street, someone has already decided whether today ends with a conversation or with another attempt to make the past disappear. She steps outside like nothing's changed. That's the trick. You don't let the moment announce itself. You move like this is just another day, just another corner, just another breath. Anyone watching expects nerves, hesitation, a slip. She gives them none. The car stays put, engine running, watching, waiting for her to commit to a direction. She does, walks past it, not fast, not slow, just enough to say she sees them and doesn't care. That rattles whoever's inside. The car eases out behind her, keeping distance. Too much distance. That's caution. That's someone who knows if this goes wrong, it goes wrong loud. Her phone buzzes once more. One meeting. Neutral ground. She doesn't stop walking. Where she types, a pause, Midtown, private office, 15 minutes, she almost smiles. Midtown means witnesses, cameras, traffic. It means whoever's calling can't afford a mess. Not there. That tells her everything she needs to know. She ducks into a cafe, orders coffee she won't drink, takes a seat by the window. The car rolls past, keeps going. That's a signal. They're repositioning, clearing space. She finishes the coffee anyway. Bitter, grounding. When she steps back outside, she doesn't take the straight route. She never does. She takes the long way, the visible way. The way that says if something happens, plenty of people will remember where she was and who was nearby. The building is clean. Too clean. Security at the desk pretending not to see her name on the list. She rides the elevator alone. That's intentional too. The office is quiet, expensive quiet. Soundproof walls, thick carpet, no windows that open. A man waits inside, older, calm. Familiar face from a photograph she's seen before, buried in the background of a charity gala. Not famous, influential, the kind of man whose power comes from being adjacent to everything. "You've caused a lot of disruption," he says, standing. She doesn't sit. "You call it disruption," she says. "I call it memory." He sighs like he's disappointed, not threatened. "This doesn't end the way you think," he says. "The house is closed. The woman's dead. The world moved on." She steps closer, not aggressive, certain. "The children didn't," she says. Silence stretches. He studies her, recalculating. "We can make this easier," he offers. "Funding, protection, a different life. Quiet." That word again. Quiet is always the price. She pulls the cloth sleeve from her coat and sets it on his desk. Just that, nothing else. His eyes flicker, just for a second. "That's the only thing I took out of that house," she says. "Everything else took something out of me." He doesn't touch it. "I'm not here to negotiate," she continues. "I'm here to let you know this is bigger than you now, bigger than all of you." He leans back, jaw tight. "You think you've won," he says. She finally sits. "No," she says, "I think you're out of moves." Outside, somewhere far below, sirens rise, not close, not for her, but close enough to remind everyone how fast control can slip. She stands again, turns toward the door. "One more thing," she says without looking back. "If anything happens to me now, every copy gets released, names included." He doesn't answer. He doesn't need to, because the real answer is already out there, moving, spreading, refusing to be quiet. And for the first time since the Mercy House, she walks away knowing one thing for sure. They can't put this back in the ground. Power hates loose ends. That photo makes one. She knows the type who sent it without knowing their name yet. Not a hero, not a savior, more like a witness who got tired of carrying weight alone. Somebody who found a door that was supposed to stay buried and decided silence wasn't worth the cost anymore. That kind of person is dangerous because they don't want praise, they want balance. She doesn't reply. Replies create trails. Trails get followed. Instead, she changes direction again. Ducks into a barber shop that smells like talc and old arguments. Takes a chair like she's got nowhere else to be. The barber clocks her in the mirror, says nothing, keeps cutting. The news plays low on a radio behind the counter. Same story, new angle. Officials express concern. Records under review. The language of delay. She smiles to herself. Delay means fear. Her phone buzzes again. Different number, we need to talk. Short, direct, no threats. That's someone who understands momentum. She finishes the cut, pays cash, walks back out into the afternoon light like she belongs to it. A man waits across the street. Not hiding, that's deliberate. Late 40s, plain coat, hands visible, no rush. She crosses toward him, stops 3 feet away. "You sent the picture?" she asks. He nods once. "I helped dig," he says. "Years ago, thought I was doing maintenance. Then I saw what was under the dirt." She studies his face, sees the guilt sitting there, heavy but honest. "Why now?" she asks. "Because they tried to burn it," he says. "And because once fire fails, people start disappearing." That lands. He leans closer, voice low. "They're not done," he says. "They just changed targets. You scared them. Now they're trying to find everyone connected to you." She exhales slow. "That won't work," she says. "Why not?" "Because this stopped being about me a while ago." She tells him what he needs to know, not everything, just enough. Names released, copies spread, timers set. Dead man switches people never think to check until it's too late. His eyes widen a fraction. "Smart," he says. "No," she replies. "Necessary." A car slows nearby, windows tinted, familiar feel. The man steps back. "They're watching," he says. She nods. "Good," she says. "Let them." She turns and walks away, leaving him standing there with a truth he can't put down anymore. Because once enough people hold a piece of the same secret, no one controls how it comes out. And somewhere, in a quiet room, someone powerful is realizing the worst part isn't exposure. It's that the story has outgrown every hand that tried to hold it. The streets don't feel the same anymore. Not because she's scared, because she's aware. Awareness sharpens everything. Footsteps sound closer, conversations carry farther, every reflection becomes a question instead of a reassurance. She keeps moving anyway, that's the rule. You don't stop when the net tightens. You move until the people pulling it don't know where to grab. By evening, the story mutates again. New witnesses, old church records, a caretaker who suddenly remembers a garden he was told not to walk through. The kind of remembering that only shows up when silence gets expensive. She hears it from a radio in a bodega while pretending to browse canned goods. Sources confirm multiple unmarked graves. The clerk shakes his head. "World wild," he mutters. She pays and leaves before the rest of the sentence lands. Because now it's no longer about whether the truth gets out. It's about who gets blamed for letting it stay buried this long. That's when the call comes, not hidden, not masked. A name flashes on the screen she hasn't seen in years, James. Her chest tightens just enough to remind her this still matters. She answers. "I'm in the city," he says, older voice, harder, still sharp. "They're asking questions in places they shouldn't." "You safe?" she asks. "For now," he says. "But somebody's trying to build a firewall, pin this on one dead woman and call it done." She exhales. "They always try that." "Not gonna work this time," James says. "Too many hands touched it, too many people watched and stayed quiet." A pause then. "They found another ledger," he adds. "Names, dates, payments." "That's the kill shot, money never forgets." "Where are you?" she asks. "Moving," he says, "same as you." They hang up without goodbye. Survivors don't waste those. Night settles in, lights flicker on. The city pretends it's just another evening, but somewhere behind closed doors people are sweating through suits, shredding paper too late, making calls that won't save them. She stops at a corner and looks up at the sky, just once. Grace, Samuel, Hannah, Peter, all the others still watching. Her phone buzzes one last time. Unknown number. "You should leave town." She types back 3 words. Too late now. Because when the truth gets this big, it doesn't need protection. It needs witnesses. And the next morning, somebody important is going to wake up and realize the past didn't stay buried. It waited, and it's done waiting. Morning doesn't break. It arrives, heavy, certain, like a verdict nobody bothered to read out loud. Sirens thread the city before the sun fully clears the buildings, not close enough to touch her, but close enough to tell a story. The kind that moves faster than truth ever did when it was inconvenient. She hears it from 3 directions at once. A radio behind a counter. A man talking too loud into a phone. A headline flashing on a screen in a diner window. Investigations, resignations, emergency statements that say everything except sorry. Names start falling, not the biggest ones, not yet, middlemen first, always. The ones meant to absorb the hit so the real architects can slip away clean. She knows that move too, that's why she doesn't celebrate. Celebration makes you visible. Visibility gets you isolated, instead she listens. Because there's a new sound underneath the noise now, a hum of panic, of people realizing the shield they trusted might not hold. Then her phone rings. This time it's a number she recognizes without looking. The man from Midtown. She lets it ring once, twice. Answers on the 3rd. "They're coming apart," he says. His voice is different now, tight, cornered. "This wasn't the plan." "No," she replies calmly. "This is the consequence." "They're asking who else talked," he says. "Who else kept records, who else knew." She closes her eyes. "That question," she says, "is what's going to ruin you." Silence stretches, long enough to feel expensive. "There are ways to stop this," he finally says, "if you cooperate." She almost laughs. "You still think this is a conversation," she says. "It stopped being that when you let children die and called it mercy." Another pause, shorter this time. "They won't let you walk away," he says. She opens her eyes and watches people cross the street like nothing's wrong. "I already did," she says, and hangs up. She knows what comes next. When systems break, they don't collapse politely. They lash out. Somebody will want a scapegoat. Somebody will want silence restored by any means necessary. She slips the phone into her pocket and keeps moving. Because somewhere in this city, someone just lost everything they were protecting. And desperate people don't ask permission before they act. The truth is out now. loud, uncontainable. But the most dangerous moment isn't when lies are exposed. It's when the people who built them realize they've got nothing left to lose, and she can feel it. The next move won't be about stories or records or hearings. It'll be about stopping a witness. And whoever's thinking that right now is already moving. She feels it before she sees it, that tightening in the air, like the city just leaned the wrong way. You survive long enough, your body learns patterns your mind don't argue with. And right now, every instinct is telling her the board just flipped. She crosses the street. The light's still red. Doesn't matter, she needs the break in rhythm. A delivery van rolls past too slow. Not idling, not rushing, matching her pace like it's thinking, that's new. Her phone stays quiet, that's worse. No warnings, no messages, no offers. That means the decision already got made. She ducks into a narrow cut between buildings, trash bags, steam rising from a grate. The kind of place cameras don't bother with because nothing important is supposed to happen here. Footsteps follow, not hurried, controlled. Professional, she keeps walking, doesn't turn around, counts them, 2 sets, maybe 3. They want her boxed, not chased. At the end of the alley, there's a door she's never noticed before. Metal, scuffed, half hidden behind a stack of pallets, locked. Of course it is. Behind her, the footsteps stop. A voice speaks, low, familiar in the worst way. You made this bigger than it needed to be. She turns slowly. 3 men, no uniforms, no masks. Faces you forget unless you need to remember them later. This isn't intimidation. This is cleanup. She straightens her coat, hands visible, calm where panic is expected. You're late, she says. One of them smirks. Still think you're in control. She glances past them, down the alley, toward the street where life keeps moving, unaware how close it is to witnessing something it won't forget. I don't need to be, she replies. I already did what I came to do. The man steps forward, and you think that protects you. She meets his eyes, steady, certain. No, she says, but it makes you nervous. For a split second, something flickers across his face. Fear. Because somewhere else in the city, phones are ringing, files are opening, names are being said out loud by people who don't scare easy. And if she disappears right now, everyone will know exactly why. The man lifts his hand. The alley holds its breath, and the next move, whoever makes it, is going to decide how this story really ends. Nobody moves. That's the longest second of her life. The kind where the world narrows down to breath, distance, intent. She can hear her own pulse, slow, steady, like it's daring them to rush. The man's hand stays half raised, not a signal, a test. He's waiting for permission he didn't get. That's when it happens. A shout from the mouth of the alley, then another. Hey, what's going on back there? Not cops. Worse, people, a delivery guy, 2 kids cutting through where they shouldn't. A woman with a phone already halfway up because curiosity beats caution every time. The men tense, you can feel it. Their plan depended on quiet, on no witnesses, on this staying small. The woman lifts her chin just a little. She doesn't smile. She doesn't need to. One of the men swears under his breath. Another takes a step back, scanning angles, recalculating risk. Cleanup jobs die the moment they get eyes. The leader lowers his hand. Not here, he mutters. They melt backward, fast and clean, disappearing the way professionals do when the cost changes. The alley exhales. She doesn't chase, doesn't call after them. She steps past the pallets, past the locked door, and into the open where people can see her face. Someone asks if she's okay. She nods. That's all she gives, because this wasn't the end. It was a message. They tried to erase her, failed. Now they know she's not alone, and she's not afraid to let the world watch. As she walks away, her phone vibrates once. A single line, this isn't finished. She slips the phone away, heart steady, mind already 3 steps ahead. Because she knows something they're just learning. When power misses its shot, it doesn't get infinite chances. And the next time they come, they won't be deciding whether to silence her. They'll be deciding whether they can survive what happens if they try. She doesn't slow down after the alley. That's the mistake people make when danger passes, they relax. She does the opposite, sharpens, stores every face, every step, every sound. Because near misses don't mean safety, they mean adjustment. The crowd swallows her, that's good. Crowds are armor, witnesses you don't have to ask for. By the time she reaches the next block, the story has already shifted again. She hears it in fragments. Can't deny it now. Another foundation stepping back. They're saying subpoenas. That word matters. Subpoenas mean paper trails get dragged into rooms where lying costs real money and real freedom. Her phone buzzes twice in her pocket. She doesn't answer either one. She already knows who it is. James. He'll wait. He understands timing. She ducks into a storefront, uses the reflection to check behind her. No tails, no rush. Whoever came for her lost their window. They hate that. She steps back outside and finally answers the call. They tried, James says. No greeting, no question. I know, she replies. They pulled off, he continues. Word S spreading fast, too fast for them to get ahead of it. Good, she says, means they're reacting now. There's a pause, then James exhales. They found more, he says. Not graves, records, transportation logs, names that don't want daylight. She closes her eyes for half a second. How many? She asks. Enough, he says. Enough that this doesn't end clean. She opens her eyes and keeps walking. Nothing ever does, she replies. They hang up. She reaches a corner and stops, letting the city flow around her. Cars, voices, lives untouched by what's unraveling behind closed doors. Somewhere tonight, a man will stare at a ceiling and realize the money he used to hide behind can't save him from memory. Somewhere else, another will decide whether to run or betray first. And somewhere quiet, far from headlines and committees, the names of children will finally be spoken without shame. She reaches into her coat and touches the cloth sleeve. Not for comfort, for confirmation, because this was never about revenge, never about exposure alone, it was about balance. And the scale just tipped so hard it cracked the table. The danger isn't gone, it's reorganizing. And she knows better than to believe the worst is over. Because the closer power gets to losing everything, the more desperate its next move becomes. Night comes back around like it's checking unfinished business. She's indoors now. Not home. Never home. A borrowed room with curtains too thin and a chair placed just far enough from the window to keep her out of silhouette. Old habit. Saved her more than once. The television stays off. Noise attracts explanations. She doesn't need those. Her phone sits face down on the table. It hasn't moved in 20 minutes. That's wrong. When pressure's high, phones don't rest. They vibrate with panic, with updates, with people trying to get ahead of consequences. Silence at a moment like this isn't peace. It's coordination. She pours water, doesn't drink it, listens instead. Somewhere outside, a car door closes, not close enough to mean anything, not far enough to ignore. She counts seconds. 1, 2, 3, no footsteps, that's worse. Her phone lights up without a sound, a message finally, not from James, not from a journalist, not from anyone who's been honest so far. Unknown number, no greeting, no warning, just a location pin. And beneath it, 6 words. You forgot one of the names. Her jaw tightens just enough to let the anger breathe. Because that means someone else has the list, or part of it, or something she never saw coming. Someone who knows the story well enough to weaponize memory. She doesn't respond, doesn't move. Outside, another car passes. Slower this time. The truth has already escaped. That much is done. But now there's a new player on the board. And whoever sent that message isn't trying to silence her. They're trying to control what happens next. That message changes the math, not fear, focus. You forgot one of the names isn't a threat, it's a challenge. It means somebody else has been counting too, quietly, patiently, waiting for the right moment to step out of the dark. That's dangerous in a different way. She doesn't grab her coat right away, doesn't rush toward the pin like a rookie chasing bait. She sits, listens to her breathing, lets the room settle back into her bones. Control first. Movement second. The location's not random. She knows that without checking. Whoever sent it wants her on ground they chose, neutral on the surface, compromised underneath. She finally stands, slips the sleeve into the inside pocket right where it rests over her heart, not for luck, for alignment. Every move after this has to answer to why she started. Outside, the city feels tighter, like it knows another layer just peeled back. She takes public transit, always cameras, witnesses, patterns that don't look like patterns until later. She gets off one stop early and walks the rest, eyes forward, mind working the angles. The place is old, brick, forgettable. The kind of building that survives because nobody ever thinks to ask why it's still there. One light on inside. Second floor, she stops across the street, watches. A man exits, not rushed, not relaxed. Mid-40s, workman's hands, eyes that don't look at the ground. He clocks her without turning his head. That's confirmation. She crosses. Inside, the stairwell smells like dust and old water. No security, no front desk. That's intentional too. The door upstairs is already open. She steps in. A single table, 2 chairs, 1 lamp, and on the table, laid out carefully like an offering, another scrap of fabric, smaller than hers, different stitching. Her pulse does spike. It drops, because now she understands. This isn't about finishing the story. It's about deciding who gets to tell the next part. A voice comes from the shadows behind her. You remembered most of them, it says, but not all. She doesn't turn around. Some names were never meant to stay hidden, she replies. A pause, then footsteps, slow, measured. Good, the voice says. Then we're finally talking about the same thing. The door clicks shut behind her, and whatever just walked into the light isn't here to erase the past. It's here to rewrite who controls the truth going forward. The door locking doesn't sound loud. It never does. Just a soft click, like the room made a decision without asking her. She stays still. Stillness is leverage. Anybody who wants control expects panic first. The man steps into the light, older than she thought. Late 50s maybe. Face lined not from age but from choosing silence too many times. He wears no jewelry, no symbols. The kind of man who learned a long time ago that anonymity outlives power. He gestures to the chair. Sit, he says, not a command, an assumption. She sits anyway, not because he told her to. Because choosing your seat tells people how much space you think you deserve. He notices that. His eyes flicker. Respect, maybe, or recalibration. You did something impressive, he says. You broke a system that's been hiding its bones for generations. She doesn't respond. Silence makes men like him talk. But you also made it sloppy, he continues. Now everyone's grabbing pieces, half-truths, performative outrage, people who want credit more than justice. He slides the second scrap of fabric closer, careful, almost reverent. This belonged to a boy they moved before your list ever started, he says. Different property, same solution. Her fingers curl just slightly. So you're late, she says, and you want absolution. He shakes his head. I want control, he says calmly. Same as everyone. Difference is I'm honest about it. That earns him a look. You think this ends in courtrooms? He asks. With speeches and clean villains. It won't. It ends with a story people agree to forget again, unless someone directs it. And you think that's you, she says. I think it should be, he replies, because I know where the rest are. That lands heavy. How many? She asks. He hesitates, just a fraction. Enough to bury a dozen reputations, he says. Enough to get people killed if this goes the wrong way. There it is, not concern, calculation. You're not here to help the dead, she says. You're here to manage the living. He leans forward. I'm here to prevent chaos, he says, and you're standing in the middle of it without protection. She studies him. Sees the truth underneath the polish. He's afraid of losing the narrative. Say I refuse, she says. He exhales through his nose. Then this fractures, he says. Different leaks, different agendas, people who don't care who gets hurt as long as their hands look clean. And if I agree? She asks, a thin smile. Then we move together, he says, carefully, selectively, the truth released in a way the world can survive. She stands, he does. That's the problem, she says. You think the world needs permission to remember. She turns toward the door. You lock me in, she adds, because you're scared I won't play your game. Behind her, his voice hardens. You walk out without me, he says, and I can't guarantee what names come next. She stops, not because she's afraid, because now the threat is clear. This isn't about silencing her anymore. It's about whether the truth explodes uncontrolled or gets shaped by someone who's been hiding with it for years. And whatever choice she makes next, someone else is going to bleed for it. She doesn't turn around right away. That bothers him more than shouting ever could. The room sits tight, waiting to see which way the weight shifts. He thinks he's holding leverage because he knows more names. She knows better. Names aren't power, timing is. You've been sitting on graves, she says finally, watching men age out of consequences, waiting for the safest moment to look brave. He stiffens. I waited for the right moment, he says. There's a difference. She turns now, slow, measured. The way you face someone when you already decided they don't on the outcome. The right moment for who? She asks. For the children or for you? He opens his mouth, closes it, recalculates. That information, he says, tapping the table, can destroy people who have never been touched before, judges, donors, institutions that hold cities together. She nods once. That's why you're scared, she says. You're not protecting the truth, you're protecting the fallout. He stands now. That's new, that's pressure leaking. If this breaks the wrong way, he says, there will be consequences you can't outrun. She reaches into her coat and places the sleeve on the table beside the other one. 2 pieces now, 2 children, 2 proofs. You think I outran consequences? She asks quietly. I grew up inside them. Silence stretches thin, then her phone vibrates. Once, she looks down, a message from James. They're moving records tonight, multiple locations. She looks back at the man. You're already too late, she says. His face drains just enough to tell the truth slipped past him. You told someone else, he says. She steps toward the door. I told everyone, she replies. His voice sharpens, loses its polish. You walk out that door, he says, and this turns ugly fast. She reaches for the handle. It already did, she says. You just convinced yourself you were on the clean side of it. The lock clicks open. Behind her, he speaks one last time, quieter now, dangerous. You don't know what you've started. She pauses in the doorway, doesn't look back. I do, she says. I just don't know who's going to stop it. She steps out into the stairwell, leaving him alone with fabric, ghosts, and a truth that no longer needs his permission. And somewhere across the city, doors are opening that were never meant to be unlocked. Because tonight, memory isn't waiting anymore. The stairwell smells like rust and old rain. That's good. Real places always do. Clean spaces lie. She takes the steps 2 at a time, not running, not strolling. Purpose has a sound to it when it moves. By the time she hits the street, the city's already changing gears. Lights on where they shouldn't be. Cars parked crooked. Men talking too fast into phones they don't usually touch after dark. Records moving means panic. Panic means mistakes. Her phone vibrates again. Not James this time. A photo, live, boxes, file drawers, a basement lit by a single bulb. Hands stuffing folders into trash bags like time is running out. Then a message. They found the second garden. Her chest tightens, but her steps don't slow. Second garden means the story just doubled in size, doubled in danger. Somebody thought distance would protect them. Somebody thought moving bodies was the same as erasing them. They were wrong. She ducks into traffic, crosses without looking, lets horns scream for her. Noise is cover. Chaos is camouflage. Somewhere behind her, a car accelerates. Not chasing, positioning, that's worse. She reaches a corner and stops short, pretending to check her shoe. In the reflection of a storefront window, she sees it, 2 vehicles now, different directions, coordinated. They're not after the story anymore. They're after containment. Her phone buzzes one more time. Unknown number, you need to disappear. Now, she deletes it without replying, because disappearing is what got all those children killed in the first place. She turns down a street she shouldn't know, one James taught her years ago when survival stopped being theory. Dead end on paper, exit in practice. The cars hesitate. Good. Hesitation means doubt. Doubt means opportunity. She slips through a narrow gate, disappears into darkness just as headlights flood the entrance she was supposed to use. From somewhere close, a voice shouts, "Too late." She's already gone. but she knows this much. Tonight isn't about winning. It's about lasting long enough for the truth to finish what it started. And the people hunting her now aren't asking whether they're right anymore. They're asking how much blood it'll take to make this stop. She doesn't surface where they expect. That's the first mistake they make tonight, assuming she's still playing defense. The passage spits her out behind a closed storefront 3 blocks over. No cameras, no witnesses, just the low hum of the city pretending it's asleep. She pauses long enough to steady her breath, long enough to listen. Sirens in the distance. Too many to count. Not random, coordinated. James was right. Records moving always brings noise, and noise always brings someone sloppy. Her phone vibrates again. This time it's James. They didn't just move files. Someone tried to move people. That lands harder than anything else tonight. Who, she types. The reply takes longer than she likes. Witnesses, groundskeepers, anyone who touched dirt. Her jaw tightens. That's not cleanup, that's erasure. She starts moving again, faster now, but not panicked. Anger sharpens her steps. Every block feels like a decision point: go loud or go dark. She chooses dark, down a service alley, through a loading bay left open by habit, up a stairwell that smells like bleach and neglect. She takes the stairs 2 at a time, counting floors, listening for echoes that don't belong to her. On the 4th floor, a door opens. A man steps out, freezes when he sees her. Recognition flickers across his face. Too fast. "You're her," he says, half a question, half a problem. She doesn't answer. Answers slow things down. Behind her, voices rise in the stairwell below. Heavy steps, purposeful. The man glances past her, then back again. Calculates. "Wrong night," he mutters, stepping aside. She slips into the apartment, bare walls, boxes everywhere. Someone already packing their life into silence. "Back exit," she asks. He points. No words, no questions. She moves through, out onto a fire escape that rattles under her weight. Below, a car pulls in too hard. Doors open. She climbs down fast, drops the last 10 feet, lands hard but clean, keeps moving. Her phone buzzes one last time. A voice message this time, short, rushed. "James. They got one of them," he says. "Not you, someone else. And they're going to blame you for what happens next." She stops in the middle of the block. That's it, that's the play. Frame her, break her credibility, turn the truth into a liability. She looks up at the buildings around her, at the windows glowing with lives that don't know how close they are to being lied to again. Not tonight. She starts dialing. Not James. Not the press. Someone higher up the board. Because the next move isn't about survival anymore. It's about forcing the endgame into the open. Before they decide, how many more people have to disappear to make this go quiet again? And somewhere, right now, someone is realizing they pushed the wrong woman too far. The phone rings once, that's all it gets. "Yeah," a voice answers, not curious, not friendly, just present. "It's me," she says, a pause, short, loaded. "I was wondering when you'd call," the voice replies. "Good." That means he's been watching. People like him always are. "They're trying to turn this into a mess with a face," she says. "Mine." "I know," he says. "They're already planting the idea." She keeps walking, doesn't stop for traffic, lets the city bend around her. "Then you also know what comes next," she says. Another pause, longer. "Yeah," he says. "It gets ugly before it gets honest." She turns down a street lit too bright for comfort. Cameras everywhere. Storefronts still open. People out late, living loud, perfect. "I need you to do something," she says. "You already did," he replies, "by surviving this long." She almost smiles. "They took someone," she says, "a witness, if that story breaks wrong." "It won't," he cuts in, "not now." She hears typing, fast, purposeful. "They've been leaning on favors," he continues. "Calling in debts they can't repay. That always leaves a trail." Her phone buzzes. Incoming, unknown number. She ignores it. "You ready for the fallout?" he asks. "No," she says, "but I'm done pretending it's avoidable." A car slows at the curb ahead, engine running, windows down. She changes direction without breaking stride. "I'll need 48 hours," the voice says. "After that it won't matter who they blame. The the frame collapses. And until then, she asks, you stay visible, he says, very visible, no corners, no shadows. She laughs once low, they won't like that. They already don't, he replies. She hangs up. The car accelerates, misses her turn, curses itself too late. Her phone lights up again. Breaking news alert. Additional sites discovered. Federal involvement confirmed. That's the sound of a board flipping over. She stops at the edge of a busy intersection and looks straight ahead, shoulders squared, face open. Let them see her. Because now, if she disappears, it won't be a rumor. It'll be a confession. And somewhere behind tinted glass and locked doors, people who built their lives on quiet are realizing the worst part is what's already come out. It's what's about to surface next. The clock is running, and this time, she's not the one who's out of moves. The fallout doesn't look like justice at first. It looks like chaos wearing a suit. Morning breaks and the city wakes up to names it trusted stepping away from microphones they once owned. Boards dissolve overnight. Foundations pause operations. Men who never missed a fundraiser suddenly miss flights, meetings, entire countries. Witnesses start talking, not all of them, not the brave kind, the scared kind. The ones who finally realize silence costs more than truth when the walls start closing in. The witness they took turns up alive, shaken, smart enough to talk fast and to the right people. That changes the temperature immediately. Now it's subpoenas with teeth. Now it's phones getting confiscated instead of returned. Now it's favors being called, and that can't be honored without self-destruction. She stays visible like she was told. Public places, cameras, crowds, churches and court steps and street corners where disappearing would be impossible without a riot. That keeps her breathing. But it doesn't make her safe. Because when systems collapse, they don't fall evenly. Somebody always tries to flip the table before it hits the floor. That somebody makes one last move. A press release leaks late, anonymous sources, carefully chosen words. They don't deny the graves, they don't deny the deaths, they deny her, question her memory, her motives, suggest she's steering the narrative for attention, for revenge, for relevance. It's a clean lie, almost elegant, for about 6 hours. Then James steps into the light. Not loud, not dramatic, just present. He brings records, dates, payments, transportation logs, names he never wanted to say out loud but carried anyway. He doesn't frame it as heroism. He frames it as debt. I survived, he says, so somebody had to remember. That's when the lie collapses, because the story was never one voice. It was a chorus that just needed a signal. By nightfall, the question isn't did it happen, it's how far up did it go. She watches it unfold from a quiet room with the lights off, the cloth sleeve resting on the table like a final witness that never learned how to speak. Power is bleeding now, but bleeding things don't die clean. They thrash. And somewhere out there, someone is still deciding whether taking her out would slow this down or make it unstoppable. The answer hasn't come back yet. The end doesn't come with applause. It never does. It comes with quiet acknowledgments, closed doors that stay closed, invitations that stop arriving. Men who used to speak first suddenly listening too hard when their names come up. The Mercy House becomes a sight, then a symbol, then a word people say carefully like it might cut them if they rush it. Some children get named, not all, some never will. She testifies once more, short, precise. No anger left to spend. The truth doesn't need her fire anymore. It learned how to walk on its own. After that, she disappears the right way, not erased, unavailable, different cities, different rooms. A life built on knowing when to leave a table before the knives come out. She keeps the sleeve, always. Years pass. The world moves like it always does, slow to learn, quick to forget. New scandals replace old ones. New men convince themselves they're smarter than history. Sometimes she wonders which of them still thinks about her. Which one wakes up at night and remembers an alley, a garden, a list that wouldn't burn. Because here's the part nobody writes down. Power never forgets who embarrassed it. It waits. So does she. And somewhere, years from now, when another clean place starts swallowing children and calling it mercy, someone's going to remember her story just in time. That's the real ending, not justice. Warning, because the truth didn't finish with her. It just learned how to survive.